Today we're going to be putting bearings in our cases now that they're all cleaned up. Hopefully I learned a little bit from the last video and stay out of the way of the camera. One of the things that I did was took the dowels out of this side of the case so they could sit flat while we were putting the bearings in. So I've got the bearings in the freezer, broke up, left case, right case. So we'll get the case heated up, go grab the bearings, and go from there. We'll do this small bearing first, since it's difficult to get to. Plus, we don't want to be fighting with it and having the bearings fall out the other side as we're heating the case up. So we'll do this one first. That's the way you want it to work. Alright, so this case is done. This one, we did take the dowels out so we can set it flat while we're putting the bearings in. You also don't want to have any seals in the cases while you're doing this because you risk damaging them. You guys remember in the last video how tight these were coming out? A little hot and cold makes all the difference in the world. Alright guys, I know a lot of people are afraid to mess with transmissions, but it's not really that hard, especially if you go ahead and print out a sheet like this that shows you exactly what order everything goes in and what all parts are going to need to be on there. It helps to take them off and keep them in order. So I've got them laid out, went ahead and cleaned them up, and then I like to take a socket to set it in so it holds it. It's a little bit easier to work with. So this is going to be our output shaft. Our stationary collar is right there. So we're going to start from that end and work our way back down here. So we'll start with the primary gear here. which you see they even mark the grooves on the front of the photo. I don't know if you can see that or not, but the grooves that are on this side of it for the oil are marked. So that goes straight down onto that shaft against the collar, just like in the picture. Then we've got the star ring. Which is not wanting to go on. There it goes. Let's go ahead and pre-lube these while we're putting them together so they're not starting up dry. Also, one of the things you want to do, there are oil holes all through this shaft to oil these the insides of these as they're spinning. Some of them even have brass inserts. So when you're cleaning it, make sure all those holes are cleared out and not gunked up. Because if they are, then you're going to starve it of oil and you will be rebuilding a new transmission. Alright, so after we put this one on, we've got the washer. Now we're going to the C-clip. Just make sure that snaps down into place. Alright, after the C-clip, this one will go on just like this. Another washer. C-clip. And if that doesn't go in place, you know you've got something out of order or upside down. Alright, then this one goes on just like this. And last but not least, flat side of this one, and oil grooves out towards the bearing. This one also has a brass insert, so you want to check and make sure that the grooves inside of the brass insert for the oil channels are not smashed and that insert's not worn out. that one is back together. So we'll start on the next one, which will be this one right here. So we're starting from the gear, going this way. We've got the gear, teeth up, washer, C-clip, another washer, this time with 3 tabs. And I messed that one up, I put that on backwards. Alright, so on the drawing, we've got this gear, the C-clip, then the washer. If you don't have that drawing to go by, it's really easy to get stuff out of order. When your spacing's wrong, it won't shift right. You're wearing into your case. All kinds of problems start happening. Alright, so that's in. Now the washer. And there's plenty of lube on that shaft right there. Alright, so that one goes collar down. And we have verified all the washers, C-clips, cleaned the gears before we put them back in, that we were not getting metal shavings or anything that was in there from the previous bearings wearing. All that's cleaned out. We even cleaned out down through the holes which supply oil out to the inside of these gears. So we are ready to start putting this in the transmission. Alright guys, we're going to be putting the transmission back together. Shift forks and drums. If you take them out and get them confused, the two are labeled R and L. And you can look at the drawing and see that the one with the longer neck off center goes on the bottom, and the one that's centered up on its neck goes on top. But you can also remember that by R is on the bottom, which is the right side of the motor, and L is on top, which is the left side of the motor. So that keeps it pretty simple for you so you don't get them mixed up. And then C will be the one over here by itself. Alright guys, so I was having trouble with the transmission. This gear looks almost identical on the drawing. And I realized that the teeth weren't going together, and the ones on the other side were bigger here. I had this on backwards. So finally figured it out. Let's try this again. That looks a whole lot better. Let's get the shift drum in place. This will actually move now, so that's good. Alright, and we've got R or L, which is the top, R, which is the right side of the motor, L, which is the left side of the motor, pinned towards the drum. Alright, everything's moving smooth and free. Okay, so there is no case gasket in there. Alright, so we got our fast metric bolt kit, crankcase bolts. Got all them in. Starting from the center, working our way out. And we've got a good case made up. Because even with just that little bit of RTV I put on, it's barely squeaking out, so. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Just a little bit coming out right there, which is all we need. That means the surfaces are mashed together, and so now we are going to clean that up with a little Goo Gone and a rag. Might be able to do it just with a rag, but that way the cases look nice and clean. No point in putting that much work into the cases and then having RTV sticking out everywhere looking like crap. Alright, I'm going to try to walk through this without getting in the way so you guys can see it. So the spring is in here. Go ahead and get a little blue stuck nuts on the bolt there. Alright, there you go. And as we get that closer down, move this a little bit to get it on the bolt where it's supposed to be. And there, we've got that down. Now we can control that spring by pushing the lever out. So we'll take our drum with the dimple in it here. It's also marked with this. We'll line it up with this one. Make sure we're sitting down on it. If you can hold that spring back, it's a whole lot better because it'll push everything out of place as you're trying to get it on. So that is seated up in there. And now we can take this piece, which we've got the 2 spring loads and the paddles. Those paddles will sit right in these notches on here, so that as you shift, one is being depressed while the other is catching. And they will go right into those slots, but they'll have to be pushed in just a little bit to get down in there. Alright, then we're ready to put our collar on. Put some stuck nuts on there, get our bolts in. If you had waited till now to put that spring on, you'd be fighting trying to get this bolt started. So this way is a whole lot easier. All right. Bring our shift fork around, line it up with the post here, and right on. There we go, everything's working the way it's supposed to. Alright, so before we put the clutch basket on, we want to put this gear on for the crankshaft. So we've got our spacer, our gear, because otherwise the clutch basket will sit over the edge of this and you won't be able to get it on. Put a little bit of Loctite on that. Like a whole lot, so. Got it. Alright, so now that that's on, we can put the clutch basket assembly on. So we'll start with our spacer washer. our new sleeve and bearing. Go ahead and slide them up in. Make sure that lines up. Second washer. The basket. Lock tab. And the push rod and ball bearing are already down in here. So we're going to torque that to 58 foot-pounds. So in order to do that, we're going to have to use the stand for a little bit of leverage. Alright, there's our 58. Now, I probably just knocked one of them loose, but you'll notice that this has the slip ends for the clutch basket that are steel for the Recluse torque drive. That way they slide a little easier and don't wear the basket out as much. Now on the Recluse, you'll see the inner and outer final clutches are a little different in design, but you can also tell from the side. You might notice on this drive also there's a few more clutch plates. So if you do switch over to the Recluse torque drive, you will need to either get some additional spacers for your clutch cover, or get the Recluse clutch cover that's got the extra depth in it, which also has more room for the oil. All right, got that in. We've also put new bearings in our push rod there. Get that in. Basket set. Alright, and the clutch springs get torqued to 7.2 pounds. Put a little bit of grease on this gasket. It'll help it seat without having to use RTV on it. And that way we don't have whoever goes to take this apart, whether it's me or not, will definitely appreciate not having a whole tube of RTV to clean up. Now the last clutch cover that was on here didn't have a drain check hole. YZ has no sight glass, no dipstick, so without it you couldn't even check the oil on this thing before. And they used a thick gasket to get the cover away from the clutches instead of using the right one. That new hardware looks a whole lot better. I'm going to put some oil in it. Since the transmission is separate from the combustion chamber, so we can go ahead and leak check it while it's on the bench while we're waiting to get the rest of the work done. So they call for 700 milliliters, so they say to leave the plug out. But I know sometimes it'll take a little bit of time for it to drain into the other half, and if you leave this out, it'll start pouring out early. So I'm going to put I've got 200 in there already. I'll put the other 500 cc's in, let it settle for a second, and then check it here. Now Recluse says that this cover will allow for more oil capacity. A bone dry oil change is supposed to take 700 milliliters or 700 cc's. We put 700 in, about 20 have come out. So I'm going to let that set a little bit longer. Check it again later.